Hello, and thank you for joining us. Excuse me one second. Thank you for joining us today for a special first time ever webinar, Oikocredit Live from the Field in the Dominican Republic 2014. You have Stuart, Blanca, and Laura with you. I'll give you some more introductions about them or some more background information about them in just a moment. But in order for you guys to get your questions, we want to be able to have lots of questions at the end here, so we're going to get rolling. So today's agenda will focus on the introductions of staff. Then we'll talk about the importance of these study tours. Laura will then chime in a little bit with the ideas and the problems around poverty in the Dominican Republic. We're going to look at the overall Dominican Republic portfolio for Oikocredit here, which has grown substantially since Laura's been at the helm. And we'll look at some of the micro things happening within that portfolio, some of those stories that our investors have come to love and really have impacted our investors to give their own money towards this type of work. And then, of course, we're going to talk about where we've been and what we've been doing. This is about we're day 4 in. I think we've got another day and a half or 2 days left. It's been a whirlwind of trips, but we're excited and our spirits are high. So let's talk about the whole group. Who are we? Here we are in Coapanocado's cocoa processing factory. We've got some locals here that work at the factory, as well as Oikocredit staff, but the really important people here are the investors. And we've got investors from Canada, Calgary, Toronto. Then we've got investors from America. We've got them from Minnesota, Pennsylvania, California. We've all converged together here to see Oikocredit's work in the Dominican Republic. These are all investors that have come with us, and they want to see what their money is doing. And this is really an awesome opportunity for them. But we are a motley crew of sorts, but we know how to have fun, and we have great leadership, and we've been really enjoying ourselves. So who are the staff on this trip? We've got Blanca. Blanca is the communications officer out of the Amersfoort in the Netherlands. Blanca is on the road a lot. Not only is she doing these types of trips for investors, but she also does 2 or 3 of these a year for Oikocredit staff, public relations trips that we do, media trips that we do. Blanca is constantly on the road and always on a plane to some far corner of the earth, helping Oikocredit staff, investors, as well as people outside of the organization understand our work and help bring those stories back, not only to investors but to potential investors. So we applaud Blanca, because Blanca is the reason we're on this trip and the reason why we are able to be so organized and move to so many remote parts of this country and see things that we would never be able to see without Blanca's help. And then, of course, on that same note is Laura Martinez, our country manager here in the Dominican Republic. She started about 7 years ago. She found an ad in the newspaper, and she decided to apply. And lo and behold, 7 years later, she built the office from the ground up. She's got another full-time employee, and we've got a couple interns, I guess, that kind of cycle through the office as well. But Laura's done an incredible job building this portfolio here in the Dominican Republic, and I'm very happy to have her on the webinar with us today, and you'll be hearing more from her and her work in just a moment. And then you've got me, the big tall redhead, standing amid the drying cocoa beans here, talking to a local cocoa farmer in my best/worst Spanish that I'm trying on again. But anyway, I am the Regional Business Development Associate, and I'm based out of San Francisco, California. My job is to market and communicate Oikocredit's story to our current investors and potentially new investors. And I am happy that I have a couple of my California constituents on this trip with me. And the main thing I'm trying to get out of this trip, again, are the stories to bring back to investors. So if you guys have any questions, or maybe you forgot a question during this webinar, or you just didn't have the time to ask it, feel free to send me an email at skringle@oikocredit.org, and I'll do my best to answer any questions you have about this trip. So these trips are important. they're not only important, I think, for the investors that are on the trip to see where their money is going, to maybe validate their investment. It's also important that staff goes on these trips to interact with investors, but more so interact with the small entrepreneurs that we're working with. The microfinance aspect of their portfolio is so rich in terms of storytelling and what we can bring back to investors. It's really important that Oikocredit staff at least gets out there once a year to see what's happening on the ground. And so this trip is no different. My task here is to gather stories, bring them back, and then be able to paint a picture for investors. And then those investors that are on this trip, it's very important, I think, again, to validate their investment, but also to have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. These trips, we're staying in Santo Domingo, the capital, but every day we're traveling 8-9 hours a day to places that aren't touristy, that are the opposite of touristy, where they're very remote, and you're talking to a small farmer who has 4 or 5 acres of land, and there's nothing really around them. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for our investors, and we're really happy with the crew that we have on this trip. The thing I would encourage you, people on this webinar listening and people future that are maybe listening to this recording, you need to apply for this trip next time it comes around. This is a really great opportunity, and we really, really encourage you to join us for the next Oikocredit study tour. So we are here in the island of Hispaniola on the right side. The Dominican Republic, we are here, I think, for a number of reasons. Of course, we have a country office here, and Laura and Blanca have been working so hard to get us and accommodate us. That's one reason we're here. The other reason is that Dominican Republic is really an interesting economy in this area of the world. I think we saw it since 2007, the GDP has grown 4.5% every year, which may not seem like a lot. However, in this region, that is the highest rate of GDP growth, again, in the region. So there's a lot happening in that macro context, and we really want to kind of drill it down and let our investors and let our staff see why is that happening, and what is Oikocredit doing to fuel that growth, and what are some of the successes of our portfolio. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura now. She's going to get more in depth about the poverty ratio and some of the issues concerning poverty and why Oikocredit is present in this country.
Throughout the years since 2004, when a new government came in, there's been a lot of work to try to lower poverty rates. But as you can see, it's still quite high. It's 40.9%. That means that 40.9% of the people in the country live with less than $2 a day. Okay, here we can see a poverty map. As you can see here, the map is divided into 4 colors. The darker color, which is the color that we can see by the border and in the middle of the island, is the lowest income of the population. Here, income ranges from $367 a month to $267 a month, which is very low. And the main reason why these border provinces are so poor is because a lot of the natural disasters that come in the island tend to affect this area. But also, it's a very dry area. It's suffered a lot of environmental stress because of environmental practices of the neighboring country. There's production here, agricultural production here is very, very low, and it's really affected the country. As you can see here, population in this area has been suffering a lot of shortages. There's been a lot of immigration in this area. A lot of people have moved to other parts of the country because of the scarce job opportunities and resources available there. As we can see in the north, by the border provinces, we have Montecristi and Valverde. Oikocredit is investing in banana in this area. So bananas has been a very important source of jobs in those 2 provinces, but Montecristi and Valverde, in the past 10 years. There's been a lot of banana production, and And this has really helped because it's generated thousands of jobs, and all of these bananas are exported to England. As we can see here in this part of the in the middle, we find the medium to high income, which is in Santiago, La Vega, San Jose de Ocoa, Puerto Plata. These are all areas that have a lot of agriculture production, and it's also very good climate conditions. The land is very fertile for agriculture production, and a lot of people. One of the main character traits of the people that live in that area is that they're very hardworking, and there's a lot of agriculture diversity. As for the upper incomes, it's only in Santo Domingo, in the Distrito Nacional. That's where most of the income, the highest income is, but it's also where it's more expensive to live as well. Here we can see the major challenges in the country is unemployment. Currently, unemployment rates are 16.7%, which is quite high. Aside from that, 56% of the workforce in the country, of the working population, is in the informal sector. This means that these are people who get their income because they own a micro or small business, or they work for a micro and small business. Government corruption is a big problem right now. That's something that, for example, Transparency International has rated us quite highly. I mean, we're number 29 compared to in rank. And the worst you can have, the most corrupt, is 0. So and the best is 100. So 29 is still not such a good number. We're working on improving it. The current government is doing a lot to improve corruption in the country. A serious problem that we also have is inconsistent electric service. Electricity, there's a lot of power shortages here in the country, and the quality of the electricity is not good, so it burns a lot. Sometimes when the power comes back, a lot of equipment is damaged, and that's an extra expense for businesses. And also, when there are many power shortages, there are more operational expenses involved in companies, no matter what size they are, because they have to have a generator, and they have to give maintenance to that generator and buy fuel. So this is really a big problem for us. As we can see here also, international migration is a really big issue, because we have a lot of people traveling to the United States and to Europe to live. For example, the biggest Dominican colony in the world is in New York. So that's something that we have to improve. If there were more jobs here and a better life conditions, people wouldn't have to leave. Another point that's very, very important to mention is that education. Our education system is one of the worst in Latin America. Our rankings are extremely low on the quality of education, so there's a lot to be done. The teachers have very poor quality. Infrastructure is very bad. Just to give you an example, students don't always have bathrooms in schools, and if they do, they're not even equipped or in conditions for people to use them. There's a lot of also problems with school teachers not going in to teach. There's no materials. It's not secure sometimes to go to school. So there's a lot of issues with this. And sometimes you can even have up to 3 school schedules. So you will have a group that will come in the morning, a group that will come in the afternoon, and a group that will come in at night, because there's not enough schools, school infrastructure for people to go to different schools. So this is a big issue, which is we're trying to improve, but it'll probably take around 20 years to see the results, at least. And then there's a potential risk of de-dollarization in the medium and long term. Why does Oikocredit invest in this region? It has enormous potential. As I mentioned previously, the informal sector, work sector in these countries is very high because there are not so many companies that can generate jobs. So Oikocredit's investment is key to improving the quality of life of thousands and thousands of people in Central America, Caribbean, and Mexico. There is little access to finance for micro and small business. There's still, this is an issue because a lot of institutions don't have enough savings to lend to the people who need the resources for their businesses. So for these institutions to access loans like loans that Oikocredit offers, it's key for their growth and development and for their social impact in the communities they service. It also makes a difference. It contributes to sustainability in the long run. We also see that micro and small enterprises represent 24% of GDP in these areas. Portfolio, as you can see, we have a total outstanding portfolio of $13.3 million, 13 project partners, 1 productive partner, which is the one that I mentioned that is in the banana area, and then we have 10 financial institutions, which are between cooperatives and MFIs. And there are 2 fair trade partners, which is 1 in cocoa and 1 in banana. Clients. Oikocredit clients are transparent institutions which identify with economic development. All of them have a social mission and vision, which is key to, it's very important for us. I mean, Oikocredit resources are not just invested in any type of institution. We always invest them in institutions that focus on the people first. There's also a reach of more than 350,000 customers. Most of the resources goes to the urban population, 55% of that. 40% of it goes to the rural population, and 5% goes to semi-urban populations, which are the people that live in the outskirts of the city. And the focus, most of our project partners invest 65% of their loan portfolio in women, and a small percentage of it also goes into startup businesses.
So thank you, Laura. That was kind of to show you kind of what the realities are here in the Dominican Republic, and really look at kind of how Oikocredit on a macro scale is really attacking those issues and looking to solve them. We're missing a logo here from Oikocredit, but this is a chance for you guys to learn a little bit more about the micro aspect of the work that we do. And so we want to tell you a little bit about where we've been, starting with Co-op Mamon. Oh, and Oikocredit. Wow. So here we are. This is a couple of our participants, Richard Scalper on the left, Linda Barnes on the right, and they're holding the flag of Cooperativa Maimon, which is in the town of Maimon. And I'm just going to go through this information very quickly so you can get an understanding of Co-op Maimon. Co-op Maimon is a medium to large cooperative institution, cooperative financial institution. As you can see here with the $61 million portfolio, they're able to reach 70,000 customers, and that even has a further tree branches if you want to talk about family and the communities that are impacted, as well as the employees that some of these micro enterprises employ. The branches, apart from including the headquarters in Maimon, there are a total of 5 branches. And again, these numbers of the rural, semi-urban, and urban clients are really important. Oikocredit really tries to focus on reaching as many rural clients as we can, and you can see Maimon is doing a really great job of that at 67% of rural clients and semi-urban at 19%. Female clients at 48% and male clients at 52 to 53%. And then you can see a little bit about the geographical area if anybody on the call today is familiar with the area. There's offices in, of course, Santo Domingo, Bonao, Maimon, Piedra Blanca, and Cotuí. I'm going to hand it back to Laura here, because one of the things that we were really impressed about Co-op Maimon is their social programs and their commitment to improving the community. So she's going to talk a little bit about these points that you see on the left.
Co-op Maimon invests approximately 25% of their net earnings in different social programs. For example, schools. Every year they donate thousands of notebooks to students. They also help with donating water pumps for schools that don't have any. They also donate refrigerators where the school can keep breakfast for the children or any other types of foods that they like that they need. And they also give hand out a lot of materials, desks and other types of things similar to that. Then they've also created parks in many areas so people can go outside and do something fun where they live. It's more to promote integration of the community where people have places where they can play, especially children. There's one park in particular which is really nice because there used to be a trash dump, an informal trash dump where people would just throw all their trash there. And Comemon asked permission to the government to clean it up and make a park there. And that's made a real significant difference in the environment of that area. There's also a social club. They have a very nice social club with pools and sports facilities, so people and a big event area, so the town can have somewhere to somewhere where they can actually do some sports activities and have a nice place to go instead of focus on drinking alcohol or doing other illicit things. It's really had a good impact in the town. There's also ambulance services. These ambulance services are provided for free to all the province. So if anyone has a health problem, the ambulance will be there and available 24/7 free of charge. There's also funeral service. Anyone in the province can go and use that funeral service. Everyone can use that building for free. All they have to do is bring in their own things, but they can use the funeral, the funeral building, which is very good. Sports. The cooperative always gives the uniforms for the sports teams. They give resources so the teachers can continue to teach, the coaches can continue to teach the sports. They provide economic support when they have to travel nationally for competitions. So they're really into helping people go more into sports and get very active. Children's education is really big. There are contests every year focused on literature and art. So the kids will learn a little bit more about creativity and have other opportunities in other areas that aren't available to them. And there's so much more that they do. It's really a beautiful cooperative which has so much impact in their province.
Yeah, so we had the pleasure of visiting them yesterday, and we didn't get to see all of these social programs. We did get to hear, and we also got to ask a lot of questions about how they're actually able to fund this. And we don't have much time to get into that today, but maybe if you have some questions towards the end, we can break it down for you. But it's incredible what this cooperative model can do for a community. And we were actually treated to lunch at the social club where a couple of our investors went 2-on-2 in a game of pool with a few of the management team from Co-op Mamon, and I think they played 2 games, and each they went 1-1. So we'll have to wait till the next time for a rematch. Let's move on to Co-op Nakado, or otherwise known as, I think, the story of how to make incredible chocolate. And I'll give it to Laura again, and we're using Laura a lot today. We thank her. She's been so busy. She's been translating everything, not only translating, but coordinating this trip. And of course, we appreciate her continuing to help us and work with us today. But here's a little history of Co-op Nakado, starting in 1985. Okay.
It was founded in 1985 by the German Development Agency, GTC, together with the government. Basically what the development agency wanted to do was to empower the small cocoa producer and also help them be able to find a sustainable way of producing cocoa environmentally and financially for them so they could improve their quality of life. It began with a grant of $150,000 to help improve the quality of cocoa production in the region. So there was a lot of technical assistance given to these small cocoa producers. And through 1985 to 1993, Conacado educated producers on new fermentation processes and formed blocks and associations. Before this, the quality of the cocoa was very bad because there was no fermentation process. So it was just taken from the trees and put in sacks, dried, and put in sacks and shipped abroad to make low quality cocoa.
So kind of fast forward to 2010 and then the next slide 2013, but when we mentioned before in the last slide the bloques, or it translates to blocks, this is kind of the organization and how those bloques break down. So we can do it from the outside in to explain this. I know it's in Spanish, but it's pretty straightforward. Asociaciones, that means associations. So the associations, they'll have their own structure within themselves, but these are where the farmers live, in these outside bubbles. And then the bloques are what are surrounding the middle, Conacado ONG, or otherwise known as NGO. But the bloques, they're all the beginning of the processing. The farmers will bring their beans to the bloques. The beans will then be fermented at the bloques, and then they'll also be dried and then put in sacks and then shipped to the Conacado factory, which also is represented in the middle here. But today, as you kind of look down in the middle of this slide, you actually have 8 bloques. So in 2013, they have a portfolio of 5 million US and a total number of customers of 9,000, almost 10,000 farmers. And 7,500 of those are affiliated with a cooperative, and that number is steadily growing as well. And what's really interesting here is that you can see with almost 10,000 farmers in a portfolio of 5 million, Conacado is structured to really give small loans to these farmers to help them with their production. And so you're really seeing a really amazing example of the small loans and the micro scale of what Oikocredit empowers its partners to do. The associations, 160 of them, again the 8 blocks, and this number down here, 100% of this economic activity is rural. And you have a larger number of male members here. Laura tells me this is very common in the region. A lot of the farms that have been passed down sometimes 4, maybe 5 generations are given to the male members of the family. But you also see a growing number here of female members, female farmers, that are getting involved in the cocoa processing as well. So here's a picture, and of course, like I mentioned, I want to make sure we have enough time for questions. This is a picture of a woman farmer, and you can see she's in her house in her window, and this is what the cocoa looks like before it's processed. It's wet, it has this kind of sweet slime on it, and it comes in this pod. And so this is where your chocolate bar starts. And so with that, we want to, of course, thank Laura and Blanca for being on this call. If you want to learn a little bit more about the trip, I've been keeping a blog. And if you go to Oikocredit USA and search our blogs, I have 3 posts already up from day 1, day 2, and day 3. And it also, you'll be able to see more pictures of the cocoa process. Again, oikocreditusa.org, and it's in our blog section of our website. And if you're a Twitter follower or a Facebook follower, please like our page or follow us on Twitter, Oikocredit USA, Oikocredit International, Oikocredit Canada. To find more information about the trip, Blanca has also been keeping a blog. So there's lots of perspectives that we want to allow our investors and our supporters the opportunity to share in our experience here. And again, next time this opportunity arises, I really, really encourage you to sign up and apply. So have a wonderful day and a great weekend, and we'll be in touch.